it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-k.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Monday, May 5th. Thanks for watching, everyone, live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. In all transparency, this was done actually before 10 p.m. tonight. It was done just after the NHL draft lottery so that Eric and I can watch the hockey game between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, even though we're missing some of it. It was, once again, the NHL draft lottery, and it wasn't only that. It was also the year-end presser with Montreal Canadiens Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations, Jeff Gorton, and Montreal Canadiens General Manager, Kent Hughes. And we're going to discuss it and break it down because that conference went on for about 45 minutes or so. So there's plenty to talk about. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by several sponsors and partners, and we thank them very much. I'll start with Betway. Who's going to win the Stanley Cup? We'll go all the way with Betway. Get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Also brought to you in part by Accent Insurance Solutions. You know, all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business. The number to call is 514-363-3636 or visit their website, www.accentassurance.com. Without further ado, before I get to Eric, actually, why don't I bring up the NHL draft lottery? And if you're wondering what the top 16 is going to look like, here you have it. Montreal, 16, and by the way, pick 17. Anyway, the other teams don't really matter. What does matter, you're probably wondering about your top 3, top 4, top 5. Anyway, you're looking at it right now. But in case you're listening to us on all social media platforms, it's the New York Islanders. The New York Islanders, actually, with the surprise. They didn't have the best odds. They were able to get it done. The Islanders have picked number 1, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Mind you, Sam Costantino on Sportsnet earlier this evening made a very good case for Matthew Schaefer, the defenseman, saying that the Islanders are pretty stacked at the center ice position, present and future, have wingers, have forwards, and with the exception of Noah Dobson on defense, they're a little bit thin. Made the case for Matthew Schaefer. San Jose number 2, Chicago 3, Utah 4, Nashville 5, the Boston Bruins, Philadelphia 6, Boston 7, Seattle 8, Buffalo 9, Anaheim 10. That's your top 10. There you have it. And of course, once again, Canadiens 16 and 17. The 16th pick is the pick they got from Calgary. Let's bring in Eric Engels of Sportsnet.ca. Eric, how are you?
What's up, Tony? How are you?
Very well. You were at the Bell Center earlier today, Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes talking, and the theme of the presser was balance. Talk to me about that. You actually wrote an article on Sportsnet. Canadiens must be mindful of balance to keep progressing. Let's discuss it, Eric. What's on your mind?
A lot of things, right? Like you look at all the decisions that the Canadiens need to make and what Gorton and Hughes specifically need to do. Balance is at the center of all of it. You're balancing youth and experience, right? The Canadiens were the youngest team going to the playoffs this year. Yep. They could potentially be even younger going to next year if all they do is replace David Savard and guys like Christian Dvorak and Armia if they're not going to be here with younger players, emerging prospects. That typically doesn't lend well to a team progressing into becoming a Stanley Cup contender soon. You know, like if you're going to get younger, all those players have to go through the same thing that the guys ahead of them who are still young on the Canadiens roster went through over the last couple of years. There is balance in terms of adding size to the Canadiens roster without detracting from its skill. There is balance in what the Canadiens want to achieve, Gorton and Hughes, versus what they actually can achieve this summer. Everyone will look at their holes. They'll say, Canadiens need a second line center or a much better second line in general. The Canadiens need potentially a veteran right-handed top four defenseman, hopefully a guy with size to play with Lane Hudson and balance things out there. But realistically, just because some players might be available that fill those types of holes, it doesn't mean there'll be a specific fit with the Canadiens.
Well, it's called player profile, right? So I would imagine that for each player on the roster, Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, Marty St. Louis, and the staff have a player profile. So, for example, you can go out and land a second line centerman.
Mm-hmm.
They want the second line centerman absolutely to be a big left-handed second line centerman who wins 53+% of the draws, and it doesn't matter if that player is not a 70-60 point player. Or they might have a player profile where they want that player to be a great playmaker and pick up over 60 points a year. And they maybe want that player to be a better goal scorer. Maybe they want that player to be nastier. This goes on and on.
Let's stop on that theme right there. Okay, so let's start with the most obvious need, right? The second line center, and exactly what you were just talking about, a player profile. Okay, let's talk about Sidney Crosby, right? Everybody in Montreal is talking about Sidney Crosby. Everyone in the hockey world is talking about Sidney Crosby with where the Penguins are headed, what his career entails over the next 2 years that he's under contract, and whether or not, despite him clearly expressing a desire to stay in Pittsburgh, if things have potentially changed. And if they have, maybe he's willing to come to Montreal. Maybe he wants to go to Colorado. Maybe the Los Angeles Kings will be his destination of choice. I don't know. But I know one thing. If he was willing to come to Montreal, the Canadiens would be able to outbid anybody in that process based on their assets. So you just talked about 16 and 17 overall. And I've heard some people say some stuff that's been absolutely crazy related to Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it either. I heard some people giving up core pieces on the team.
Like, this is not what's not going to happen is Sidney Crosby says he's willing to come and the Canadiens are giving up 3 first-round picks and Michael Hage. So you could forget that. That's crazy. Like, no chance is that happening because you have to assess what the marketplace is. Nobody else is going to give Pittsburgh anywhere near what Montreal could give them, but Montreal is not so stupid as to give away an entire rebuild essentially to get Sidney Crosby for a couple of years. Okay,
I don't know why Michael Hage's name is always thrown into rumors. I mean, the guy's story is amazing. He was born to play for the Montreal Canadiens, and it has to happen.
It started with my interview with Kent Hughes at the GM meetings, where he talked about being more willing to potentially overpay in a trade than he would in free agency for the exact thing that we're talking about. Doesn't necessarily want to lock up a long-term deal for a guy who's just starting there at like 28, 29 years old when he's got young players like Hage and Kapanen and whoever else you want to throw into that basket coming. Okay.
Yes, and he would rather, if I can add, he'd rather overpay in picks that he has a lot of than overpay a guy July 1st where it ends up becoming a contract where the second you sign it, you hate it.
Right. And also, if he was willing to move from within his prospect base, he doesn't have to go with Michael Hage. There's a number of prospects that have certain redundancy within their system that would be very quality prospects being acquired by whichever team gets them. So forget Hage, forget about 3 first-round picks and coupling those things together. But also forget about Crosby, okay? Crosby's a pipe dream. I'm not saying it won't happen, but it is still much less likely to happen than it is likely. So then, and the dream of Crosby is everybody should have it. Because if he comes, he not only immediately turns them into a cup contender because he'll attract other people too that will help fill this thing out, but what he will leave after 2 years of being here that he's under contract for is something that will propel them continuously to be able to achieve their goal of contending for the Stanley Cup. But assume that he's not available, because that's a more logical assumption than him being available to the Canadiens. I think there's a lot of people within the fan base, understandably, that see such a glaring hole at that second line center position, that see Demidov coming, that they would take anybody who has a certain talent level that fits the mold. And the key to realize here is that, like, Jeff Gorton and Ken Hughes are not just going to plug this hole to plug it. They are not just looking for a guy who's talented enough to be a second line center. They're looking for a guy that specifically helps them contend for the Stanley Cup year over year. So what does that mean, Tony? Say the Islanders, who just won the draft lottery, decide Matt Barzal is available. If I ask you how tall and how big is Matt Barzal, what would you tell me off the top of your head?
Matt Barzal is he's under 200 pounds, and he's 6 foot.
Okay. So nobody would actually know he's 6'1".
Okay.
He's 190 because Matt Barzal doesn't play particularly big. He does a lot of things. He's a 60 to 80 point player. You know, he has had some injury issues the last year, but we've seen him top out at over 80 points in this league, and playing for a very stingy Islanders style team that he could get even more. So he might even be overqualified as a second line center type. Okay.
Horvat, who plays with him, is bigger and thicker.
Yes. So Horvat,
Barzal can
plays
fly
with him. Horvat, who plays with him, is 6'1", just like Barzal.
Yeah.
But when you mention Horvat, he's also 215, and he plays a much heavier style of game than Barzal does. Okay,
Barzal can fly.
I'm not saying this to denigrate Matt Barzal. He's a fantastic hockey player. The point is, the Canadiens have Caulfield and Demidov in their top six. Suzuki is not. Suzuki plays a lot bigger than he actually is, but is still on the smaller side.
He's thick, though.
Canadiens have a clear need in terms of size. Crosby is a player who at 5'11", 200 pounds, plays like he's 6'2", 220. So that's not a concern. But this is about balance, okay? So I know a lot of people would be like, you can't pass on a guy like Barzal. But this is what Gorton and Hughes have to navigate this summer. They can't get so excited about filling the hole that they try to fill the hole at all costs. They have to go with what actually fits. That you look at Barzal and you say, you know what? That guy comes, the Canadiens are going to be a perennial playoff team for the next 8 years. But are they going to be a perennial Stanley Cup contender with him and Suzuki down the middle of the top two lines, with Demidov and Caulfield already there in the size issue?
Yeah, but you brought up the pipe dream of Crosby before. It's a short-term patch.
It's a short-term patch because a guy like Michael Hage is in the system, and you're giving him time to develop into the player. And when Jeff Gorton talked about, he had a key moment today where he said, I know everyone's fixated on the second line center thing, but there are certain players that drive second lines or first lines from the wing that are 100-point players. Ivan Demidov could be that player. Michael Hage could be that type of player. You could have a combination of the two of them that
Mitch Marner and Nikita Kucherov are those players.
Sure, that's who he was. Kucherov was the number one guy that came to my mind. But
yes, me too.
You could point at Artemi Panarin, who he got in New York, or you could. There's a few different guys, Pasternak in Boston. There's a few different guys that fit that mold. But
Kucherov's one of the best passers of the last 20 years in the NHL.
Just so we don't get lost on the point here, okay? You might hear this summer that Barzal's available. Maybe New York decides we're not going into a rebuild and none of those guys are available because they have the number one overall pick. I don't know. I don't think the number one overall pick this year is good enough for them to decide that. I think New York should go into a rebuild. Whether or not they'll tear it completely down to the studs is a totally different question. But if that name comes up and you're freaking out because the Canadiens don't go for that player, just keep in mind, they're not trying to just make the playoffs year over year. They're trying to win the Stanley Cup and become a team that could contend for the Stanley Cup year over year. Crosby enables them to do that for a couple of years while they season other guys and potentially to get another target down the line. I don't think Barzal does. I don't think Elias Pettersson does. Like, people are going to mention.
Yeah, if you chase the pipe dream of Crosby, let's just say, okay?
Yeah.
And his 2 years are up, it's probably, it's probably not realistic to think that Michael Hage comes in then 3 years from now and can pick up where Crosby leaves off. He's going to need time, right?
Maybe, but maybe he'll be here a year from now while Crosby is still a part of the team if he's here.
Maybe.
we're talking in a ton of maybes.
Yeah.
The entire point of bringing up Crosby, Barzal, anybody else, Elias Pettersson, who had a 100-point season, an 89-point season, and tumbled down this past year because he clearly doesn't seem all that happy in the place that he decided to stay in for 8 years.
Yeah.
Is a player that I think the Vancouver Canucks would consider trading. And I'm sure there's going to be Canadiens fans pounding the table like, go get that guy.
Yeah.
Again, all the decisions that are getting made here is with balance in mind and with building a Stanley Cup contender, not a team that can make the playoffs year over year, not to just capitalize on the momentum that was built this season, an unexpected run that got the Canadiens to the playoffs, okay? That should be very encouraging to Canadiens fans because the whole reason they were on board with the rebuild was because they were tired of being in the middle ground of, we'll make the playoffs and anything can happen.
Well, with that being said, I think we have the money clip from Jeff Gorton. Let's listen to it.
I do think we're in a situation where we have talent coming. We have a nucleus that's forming. I do think that we don't necessarily just go chase something just to chase it, right? We'll be, when we add to our team, it's because we really think it's somebody that's going to help us.
So, Jeff, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Let's hear from Jeff Gorton.
I would say, if you're just watching, if you just go on the playoffs, obviously, compete, adding players with some size, a little compete, some skill, obviously. So, listen, as we're building the team out, we're trying to get better in all areas, right? So we're not a finished product, but I think there's not one area of our team where we're saying we're done there, right? So we'll continue to look at everything and try to build it out. But, I think everyone's talking about size and Washington and the way they played, and certainly we're aware of that. And as we move forward, Kent and I have a lot of discussions about this, size. Compete is really the biggest thing, making sure that we have people that are comfortable in a playoff environment to play in all situations. But there's really nothing we won't look at to try to improve it.
I would say, along Jeff's comments about compete, we got a lot of young players who lived it for the first time. Some of them are big players. They just have to learn how to use their physical attributes to impact the game more in a playoff environment, and that's new for them, right? I was trying to think of a poor Ivan Demidov who flies over here, has his flight tracked, his people waiting for him at the airport, comes and plays a playoff game against a really young first game against a young inexperienced team. He's trying to figure out the city, the language, everything else. By game 2 in the playoffs, there's a brawl going on the bench beside him. I was trying to how do you adjust to all these different things that are being thrown at you? And obviously that's the extreme case, but there's an adjustment that happens for young players, and I think we've all seen it over the years watching other hockey teams or watching this hockey team in prior years, and that's part of it. It's not, we can't just run around and eliminate players from our lineup to replace them. We have to ask them to continue to adjust their games too.
All right. Okay. On that note, I want to bring up Mathew Barzal's hockey DB. Let's bring it up. All right. So take a look at, there's a few things I want to take a look at. Take a look at penalty minutes on the hockey DB. The points, of course, in his first full season in the National Hockey League, he picked up 85 points. In his second season, in his second season, he picked up 62. In his third season, he picked up 60, mind you, in 14 less games. Great season. The year after that, he picked up 45 and 55, 59 and 73, 51 and 58. 80 and 80 a year ago, and 20 and 30 this past season. So obviously this season injured, a couple seasons before that injured, season before that missed a few games, season before that, that I think was the lockout season. So he's had some injury plagued seasons, and career highs was 85. He's played some playoff games. He's played 60 playoff games, and he has 45 points. So
good numbers.
They're good numbers. So when they said comfortable in playing playoff hockey, he's comfortable playing playoff hockey. Does he have that compete that they were talking about, Eric?
Yeah, I think so. By the way, again, nothing I said was to denigrate Mathew Barzal. It's just a question of balancing out what the Canadiens already have. We know Caulfield is under contract for another 6 years after this one.
Yep.
We know that Ivan Demidov just started his entry-level deal. Those guys are here for the long term. Suzuki another 5 years at least. At a certain point, if you're not going to get another guy to fill that big hole that they have on the second line that has the type of size that Slavkovsky has, you need to get a guy that's going to play as big as Slavkovsky can. And Kent's comment, clearly aimed at Slavkovsky among others, is there's a certain level that you learn by playing in the playoffs that you need to get to, which I think Slav learned some really valuable lessons this year. And people should keep in mind that his birthday was March 30th and he just turned 21. All the experience he's accumulated brings him to a better place. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, not worried about Slav. But the balance of what you need on a team, Tony, to become a Stanley Cup winner, go look at how Dallas is built. Go look at how Colorado is built. Go look at how Florida is built. Washington, who just beat Montreal, and Carolina. You have a bunch of big players and you have a bunch of players who play big. And I'm not taking something away from Matt Barzal, but I asked you that question right away. How big is he? And you said 6 feet and under 200 pounds. And you left him short an inch because psychologically, when you think of Matt Barzal, you don't think of a player who plays bigger than he actually is. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not saying he plays smaller than he actually is, but he
I
doesn't
understand what you're saying. You would ask me the same question about Sam Bennett. We would actually said he's taller than he actually is.
Like Elias Pettersson is bigger player. He's bigger than Suzuki. Does he play bigger?
No,
not even close.
Mind you, some will say that bigger players are more difficult to move around, and they
depends.
Like they weigh on you over the course of a long series.
You don't think the Canadiens would love to have a couple more players that are 6'6"? There's no point in adding them if they don't play like they're 6'6". Everything is balanced. Everything has to be balanced with who they actually are. And that's why it's such a critical juncture for this management group, because they're as excited. Their fans are super excited.
Mm-hmm.
They are as excited too about what developed this year, the strong culture, the young core that they have that's coming up and gaining such valuable experience. The fact that Demidov, who he brought up the adjustment that comes. If Demidov had come here and just played 2 regular season games and the Canadiens missed the playoffs, he'd come back and we'd see a very strong version of Ivan Demidov, who's going to announce himself to the NHL and be a Calder Trophy candidate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he got those 5 playoff games under his belt and the adjustment that we saw from him from game 1 to game 5, now he really knows. He really knows just how far he needs to push it to be the best version of himself. That experience was so valuable. And of course, management is excited about that. How could they not be? But what they can't do is turn that excitement into a blind chase to fill the holes that the Canadiens have to get it all done in one summer because everybody wants them to continue moving forward. The thing that they've done, Tony, in this rebuild, against all odds, is they put one foot in front of the other. You look at all the other rebuilds we've seen in the league over the last 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them have had that linear type of progression? Believe me, these guys understand that that's not likely, but they would love to continue to keep going in the same direction more than anything. So you have to temper your own enthusiasm as a manager and think very rationally. We add something to this team for the next 6 years.
Yeah,
we can't get out of it. So it better be the right fit. It better balance out what we already have.
We're talking about second line center, which was obviously, big talk today. Mind you, it took 22 minutes before the question was asked. But anyway, it's another story for another day. Kirby Dach.
Yeah.
When his name was brought up, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm paraphrasing Kent Hughes, it was something like, we haven't given up on Kirby Dach. He's got a lot of talent. He can definitely play on our team. There's no doubt about it. There's a spot for him on our team. Where that spot's going to be depends on him.
Yeah, that was Gorton who said that stuff.
Gorton, yeah. Well, you know what? I think we have Gorton on doc. Let's see.
That's the clip. Yeah.
Here we go.
Obviously, he's had, 2 really tough years and 2 tough injuries here. So we're going to have to see how he responds, this summer to the rehab and going through this again. But, there's certainly a place for him in our lineup. It's going to be up to him where that's going to be. He has size. He's competitive. He's got skill. He's a very talented player. So I think a lot is in the balance of how his summer goes with how the rehab's going to go. And, we saw last season, a slow start coming back from that, particularly in his skating. And he'd be the first to tell you that. So we'll see how quickly that can be. And hopefully, it's a little smoother transition coming out of that injury again. So I think a lot, unfortunately, just is going to be what kind of summer he has and what kind of start he has to camp. He's going to need a big camp to get himself going and get started early.
Are they diplomatically saying that they thought he could have showed up to camp in better shape and more ready?
Yes, and Kirby Dach said the same thing to me when I interviewed him in December. He realized he made a mistake, and you know what? It's a scary mistake to realize as the snowball is picking up steam, rolling down the hill. Or actually, you look at it another way. He was kind of walking up towards that snowball, which was collecting momentum. It's a scary thing to realize in a market like Montreal, where it's so unforgiving if you're not doing well and you start off bad out of the gate, right? Like, look at Josh Anderson a year ago. People would have traded him for a bag of pucks, and now they would kill to have 3 more players just like him. The potential for Dach to come back and realize a similar type of turnaround, albeit potentially in a different role, is there. When Ken Hughes says, I still believe in the player and he has great potential, he does. Hughes also acknowledged that he's got to realize that potential right now. I think there's some people who looked at the Canadiens and said, going into this offseason, whatever they add, they're going to have to subtract Dach. Let's back up. I remember when Ken Hughes was hired, he mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing, some other GM he was talking to, I can't remember which one it was, that said, we're in the business of buying high and selling low. Unfortunately, if you look at how Ken Hughes has operated so far, he has been unwilling to buy high and sell low. Okay. Kirby Dach makes $3.36 million for one more season.
Yeah.
Going into the final season of his contract. His value on the market is as low as it can possibly be in relation to what his actual potential is as a player. And I know a lot of people have given up on Kirby's potential. I think it's a real dangerous game to give up on somebody's potential and sell him as low as where he's at. And I don't see Kent going down that road before they have a chance. And that's why I remember you and I talked in December after I did that interview with Dach, and I said the next 12 months, not the next 6, will be the most determinant in terms of Dach's future with Montreal. He still has training camp to come. He still has an opportunity to carve out an important role on this team, whether it's on the second line as a winger or the third line as a winger or a center. And I still believe in his potential to do that, but he needs to prove it. He needs to learn the lesson from last summer and how he dealt with the injury. I believe he had a torn ACL this year as well in the same knee, which is a brutal thing for him to go through 2 years in a row. I thought it was a disservice to Kirby that he wasn't available to speak on Friday. He's a big subject for this offseason, and he deserves to have his own voice heard when everybody's going to be talking about him.
So why didn't he?
I don't know. He wasn't available. We asked for him. He wasn't available. I don't know if it was his decision or theirs, but ultimately, whatever Kirby's going through, which would be normal, he'd be going through stuff with like what he's dealt with the last couple of years. He he can view it as a massive challenge or a great opportunity. And I'm a kind of a glass half full kind of guy. I think he's got a great opportunity in front of him. And if he ends up taking advantage of it, it'll be a big help for the Canadiens. If he doesn't, then it'll be a big loss for him.
All right. Okay. You know what? The Canadiens, for the most part, have thought that Kirby Dach was a centerman when they acquired him.
Me too.
Right now, today, Monday, May 5th. Have you changed your mind?
Yeah.
Me too.
I have. And I have, but less to do with his potential ability to be a good center, whether it's on the second or third line, and more to do with his potential to, if you put him with a really good second line center and Ivan Demidov on the other side, you might see the best version of Kirby Dach.
I think he felt so, I thought he was a lot more liberated when he was playing on the wing.
Yeah.
With a little less responsibility. He's not a great face-off guy to begin with. Let's be honest. It's under 40%. His commitment and discipline in playing the 200-foot game is probably not where it should be after playing 250 plus games in the National Hockey League. I just think that he would be a lot more free as a winger, and I would think he would be better. And I think he gives you more options as well, because if you have him as a winger, don't be surprised if you put him with Caulfield and Suzuki every now and then, because you still make the line bigger, because you're still got a big boy there. Yeah. And he had success playing with those guys. And then I think you could take Slavkovsky and make him do. Now, I'm not saying on a permanent basis, but I'm saying slot him every now and then.
But it sounds like we both agree that his potential to still be a top six forward is there. And if he realizes it, it's a big if. Like, the conclusions we're drawing about him right now are based on what he showed on a year where it's very clear he did not give himself the best opportunity to come back from what was a very serious injury, okay? He admitted that much to me in December. It's not a secret. He just didn't. Was he in good shape? Yes. Was he in good enough shape? Clearly not. Okay. So we're viewing all this stuff within that prism. So it's very complicated to make definitive conclusions about what the future holds for him. We know one thing's for sure. If he treats it the same exact way as he did last summer and comes back and he's the same Kirby we saw this year, I'm not sure what his future is in the league, let alone in Montreal. I don't expect him to do that, though, based on the conversation I had with him. I wish we could have had another one before we went to summer. But, Kirby got some nice support from Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes. Maybe part of that is because they're not in a position to trade him right now. He's here. Maybe the other part is they know he needs that support and to feel important so that he does the right thing and can make the type of difference he can. They gave up a lot to get this player. He still has the potential to make it work for them. It's been a rough go so far. There have been flashes of brilliance, but not enough of them. I don't know. Like, when you talk about him and potentially interchanging him and Slav from the wing and this and that and joining, it's because you see the same thing that I do, that he could still be a top six forward on this team.
Oh, he's got skill.
Actually does what he can do.
Yeah, he's got skill for sure. There's no doubt about it. Okay, we'll end it with this on Jeff Gorton on the possibility of offer sheets. But before we actually get to that, once again, I want to thank all of our sponsors. Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also, Playground. If you're looking for the ultimate entertainment destination, Playground is your ticket to nonstop thrills. Experience heart-pumping gaming action, a world-class poker experience. Playground 2025 winner of Fan Choice for the best poker room at the Global Poker Awards. Indulge your taste buds at their incredible restaurants. Let loose with their live music, electrifying DJs. Enjoy unmatched customer service just minutes from downtown Montreal, right across the Mercier Bridge. Why settle for ordinary when you can have extraordinary at Playground? It's all there. Visit playground.ca to discover more. And see that fridge behind me? Actually, you don't right now, but you did before. Well, it's Bittt TV, and it's stocked with it. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the summer, and only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. Jeff Gorton brought up offer sheets earlier today. Was there a message in that? Let's hear from the Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations of the Montreal Canadiens, Jeff Gorton.
I think that you're going to see more of them based around the league. I don't know. I don't know where we'll be with that, but I think that as the cap goes up, it won't be surprising that you'll see more that avenue being used. We saw it last year to some degree of success here. So, but as far as what we're going to do, we'll have to stay tuned. But it's certainly an option, and like I said, you'll see more of it.
We saw it last year with some degree of success. He's obviously talking about St. Louis offer sheeting Broberg and Holloway and pulling it off, and both of them instrumental in the Blues' success this past season in making it to the playoffs. Eric Engels, do you think the Montreal Canadiens are going to offer sheet anyone?
I don't know, and I don't want you to get radioed on your own show. Because obviously Gorton didn't bring that up himself. He was asked specifically.
He was asked about offer sheets. All right, that's cool.
Let's just make it clear. He didn't just open up a dialogue and say, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about this. I don't know where we're going to land on it."
Good for you for clarifying, Eric. You did good.
I don't want to put you in a bad spot. That's why.
You did good. You did good at clarifying. I took some notes here earlier today while the press conference was going on, but I wasn't able to get all of them because people were coming. Look at that.
That's a lot of those are. Cool.
You see that? Yeah. I highlighted when it's can't use, and when I don't highlight, it's because it's Gorton.
I haven't used a pen for that long, so my handwriting is gone to shit. I can't do it that way. I use a computer for everything. So, look, the offer sheet thing.
Yeah.
There's two things. One, to put one in at the top level, you need your own picks. You need your own picks in general, right? So this is an avenue that the Canadiens could go down. They've got a ton of picks and they possess their own, which is important. Have to look through their entire arsenal over the next couple of years, but pretty sure they're in a spot. And if for whatever reason they needed to redeem one of their own picks, if they don't own one of them, they could find a way to do that too and be creative about it. We also know what's happening with the salary cap, and this was the reason the question was asked by Marc-Antoine Gaudin, which is that it's going up and going up exponentially year over year.
Yeah,
it's going to jump by 4 million, and it's going to be up to like 110 within 3 years, and then it's going to go up exponentially from there, provided the NHL continues to generate revenue at the rate that it is currently generating it, which with expansion coming is a pretty safe bet. Okay. Which is to say that teams on the receiving ends of offer sheets can choose the compensation of picks that come their way, or with more money at their disposal because the cap is growing, can more easily match those offer sheets. So I think the reason Marc-Antoine Gaudin for Radio Canada asked that question is because there is a general thought out there, like Gorton said, that once it's become something that has proven to be successful, it could become a trend. It's not wrong, but the balance to that is the cap is going up and teams will have the opportunity to match those offers.
I hear you, of course. Yes.
I don't like
you have the opportunity to offer more, but teams have the opportunity to match.
If the Canadiens,
I still think it's also something, Eric, part of me, that some GMs don't like to do it because they don't want it done. They don't want it done to them.
Maybe.
Forward.
And that's the circle of life you got to live with.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like could be worth it. Like if the Leafs decide at all costs they're going to re-sign Mitch Marner, they're going to have a hard time getting Matthew Nyes done for the type of deal and getting it done on time if Marner holds up the market a little bit with them.
I like him. And,
you know, when you hear Gorton say, and Hughes has said this too, like, in terms of, I know everybody's looking at second line center, but you know, it doesn't. I think they just want a top six forward here, and if your second line becomes Demidov, Newhook, and Nyes, or Demidov, Newhook, and Slavkovsky, and Nyes is playing with Caulfield, and you know, I'm not sitting here saying the Canadiens are going to offer sheet Matthew Nyes. I'm just giving you a hypothetical of the type of thing they have to look at, right?
Yeah.
Maybe none of that happens and they go and try and sign Sam Bennett. I have no clue what they see as the ideal fit, and they're certainly not going to tell anybody until they've identified that player and are going after him and it starts to get out that they've made a particular pitch. We know one thing happened a year ago, okay?
Yeah.
They had a potential deal in place to go get Trevor Zegras. They drafted Ivan Demidov and realized that Zegras was a redundancy. We're going full circle here in our conversation about balance. They didn't pull that trade off because they knew, well, now that we have Demidov, we're not going to add another guy who's like kind of doesn't play that big and is. So,
mind you, it goes to tell you that they liked Zegras to begin with, which a lot of people actually had their doubts whether or not they did.
They needed, maybe Demidov wouldn't have been available to them, and maybe at third overall, Anaheim wouldn't have chosen Seneke.
Yes.
And the Canadiens end up with a big winger and decide, well, now we're okay with trading for Zegras because we've balanced it out.
Of course, I got
This
you.
is how you build a team.
And
This is
I
how you
think
build a
that's,
team that's
I
going to
think that's
win.
what they had in mind when they drafted Slafkovsky, right? They
course.
probably said, you know what? We got some smaller guys at the forward position. Big guys are hard to come by with that skill set anyway. We can't pass on this guy. Let's take him because he'll be a piece of the puzzle going forward, right?
David Reinbacher.
David Reinbacher as well. I think you can say that as well. All right. Okay. On that note, look, really interesting day earlier today. A lot of questions were asked. Some people say, you know what? We didn't learn much. I don't know about you. I learned a lot today because sometimes if you listen very carefully, there's always a few hints along the way. I think Gorton and Hughes are pretty good for that. And sometimes if you listen carefully and you have these gentlemen figured out, you kind of realize when they're playing poker and when they're not playing poker. So I love listening to them talk. And yeah.
My main takeaway from today is exactly what I wrote about, the balance that feeds into every single element of a decision that they got to make. You know, they experienced something at the beginning of this season, and it will serve them well in that they came under heavy fire for the way things were going. Them, the coach, the team in general. It did not look like they were about to step forward. It looked very much like they were about to move backwards. Yeah. Something that they realized could potentially happen along the way of this rebuild, something that they would have expected. The fact that they felt it and experienced it was very valuable for everybody involved, including Gorton and Hughes, because they know how difficult it can be. And they have to be able to stomach that if they can't fill the holes that they have on the roster all this summer, because they didn't find the pieces just didn't become available to them that they deemed as long-term fits for their team versus what they actually have coming up.
There you have it. Coming from Eric Engels' mouth, the turning point of the season was me calling my mother earlier this season on the radio and asking her if she would have called a timeout. And it got everyone in the organization motivated.
There was heat, like to experience that real feeling of heat.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not getting
experienced it. He brought it up. Marty St. Louis too experienced it, right? And
by the way, but like for Gorton and Hughes to experience it, for them to feel like for the first time, okay, like we're going to face some real heat on this. Not to suggest that they'll be comfortable with that moving forward, but they have to accept that that is part of this process if they're going to stick to their guns and do this the right way. Because you can't just go and grab somebody because they're talented. I know from a fan's perspective, this team has been starving for the type of talent that's been added, like Demidov and Hudson. Like it's been 3 decades. And now that there's finally been some progress, you want to see that progress built on and for it to continue and for it to keep moving with one foot in front of the other and potentially go from a jog into a sprint. Management knows that you can't skip steps. You don't go from a jog to a sprint. You go from a jog to a light run to a sprint, to a hard run to a sprint. And they're going to have to deal with the consequences of that because I think a lot of people would love it if they could fill every hole they have between now and September. And I'm sure they're going into the market trying to do that. But reality is another thing versus what their actual desire is.
Good stuff, Eric. In ending, your nominees for the Calder Trophy this year for Rookie of the Year in the National Hockey League, Mathew Barzal of the San Jose Sharks, Lane Hudson of the Montreal Canadiens, and Dustin Wolf, goalie of the Calgary Flames. So congratulations to the finalists, and we'll find out the winner.
Yeah, the guy in the middle is going to win.
You know what? I have a Lane Hudson jersey here, and I hope for you that the guy in the middle is going to win. Because
I don't think you need to hope. He's going to win.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
You can lock that one in.
I'll tell you this. I think he's going to win, and I think he deserves to win. Having said that, unbelievable season for Wolf. Unbelievable season for Macklin Celebrini, who is what?
Who do you think is going to finish second?
3 years younger than Lane Hudson, which is like just mind-boggling. It's incredible. Who would I? Okay,
not who would you vote for, but who do you think is going to finish behind Hudson for the Calder? What's the order?
You're probably asking me because you think it's going to be Wolf, but I think it's going to be Celebrini. I just when goalies play 45 games, when players play 82, for me it's But then again, you asked me who I think. I don't know. I mean, if I tell you who I would vote for, I'd vote for Hudson first, Celebrini second, and Wolf third. That's why I would vote for.
Calgary finished
Just outside of a playoff
points.
spot. Yeah.
They finished losing a tiebreaker to the Blues by one regulation win.
Yeah.
They were the lowest scoring team in the league this year.
I hear you. I would vote for Celebrini. I think Wolf. I think Wolf will finish second, but I would vote for Celebrini.
Okay, so you think that Wolf will actually finish second?
I think Wolf will finish second, but I would vote for Celebrini second.
I'm as curious as anybody in terms of how that race finishes.
Yeah.
Logically, I could see the argument for both guys. So we'll see what happens.
I hear you. Thanks, Eric. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Take care.
All right, there you have it. Eric Engels of Sportsnet. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont at Master Control and all of our sponsors. Leave us a 5-star review. It's our way of feeling the love. Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. I'll be back tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.